is about to show why he's the king. Let's jump into the game. Magnus begins with knight to f3, a flexible move, letting him adapt to whatever Gukesh brings. Gukesh strikes back confidently with d5 and then knight to c6, quickly claiming the center. Magnus follows with g3, preparing to fianchetto his bishop. But here comes Gukesh, developing his bishop to f5, showing he's ready to control the board early on. Magnus slides his knight to h4, nudging at Gukesh's bishop on g4. Gukesh simply steps back to g4, staying safe. Then Magnus goes for bishop to g2, reinforcing his control of the long diagonal. Castle time! Magnus gets his king to safety and Gukesh follows with his 6. Then, here comes Gukesh's bishop to a7. Ready to challenge the center, Magnus pushes his pawn to h3, forcing Gukesh's bishop back to h5. Magnus moves his knight to f3, supporting his position and preparing for queenside expansion. Gukesh plays knight to f6, developing his knight. Magnus plays c4, challenging Gukesh's control of the center. And there it is, Gukesh castles, getting his king to safety. Magnus captures on d5 and Gukesh recaptures. Magnus develops his knight to c3, keeping up the pressure on the center. Gukesh responds with knight to f4, placing his knight in the heart of the board, looking to take command. Magnus advances his knight to e5, challenging Gukesh's control. Gukesh exchanges knights and Magnus captures back, clearing space. Gukesh takes the knight on c3 and Magnus recaptures with bishop, creating a solid pawn structure and opening lines. Gukesh stabilizes his center with c6, preparing for the next stage. Magnus goes aggressive with f4, showing he's ready to attack on the king side. Gukesh pushes f6, challenging the center. Magnus follows up with g4, threatening Gukesh's bishop. Gukesh retreats it to f7, trying to hold his position together. Magnus takes on f6, opening the king side wide open. Gukesh counters with a bishop to c5 check, forcing Magnus's king over to h2. Gukesh recaptures with queen, takes f6, holding his ground for now, but things are heating up. Magnus moves his queen to d3, keeping his options open. Gukesh slides his bishop to g6, staying flexible. Magnus follows up with f5, pushing Gukesh's bishop back. Now he develops his bishop to f4, putting pressure on the long diagonal. Gukesh brings his bishop to d6, offering a trade to simplify the position. Magnus trades bishops on d6, simplifying the position. Gukesh takes back with his queen, and Magnus quickly places his queen on g3, preparing for an attack. Gukesh places his rook on d8, ready to contest the open file. Magnus trades queens with queen takes d6, aiming for the endgame. Gukesh takes back with his rook, but Magnus doubles up his rooks on the d file. Zrenya Gukesh responds by doubling his rooks as well. It's a tight endgame race. Magnus slides his rook to f4, ready to pressure Gukesh's weak pawns. Gukesh plays c5 to hold the position together, but Magnus is already maneuvering with rook to a4 and soon rook to a5. Gukesh pushes his pawns to a6 and b5, but Magnus is relentless. Magnus pushes a4, setting up a queenside breakthrough. Gukesh places his bishop on e8 to defend, and Magnus brings his king up to g3, preparing for the final blow. Gukesh pushes d4, forcing an exchange, and Magnus keeps up the pressure. Magnus brings his rook to c1, dominating the open file. He takes on a6, winning a critical pawn, and Gukesh tries to hang on with rook c8, but Magnus is in control now with rc3, pushing for a final breakthrough. Gukesh moves his king to support, but Magnus brings his rook in with rook to a7, taking control. Gukesh responds with rook to b2, desperately defending. Magnus pushes g5, a decisive kingside thrust. Gukesh's position is getting squeezed as he scrambles to hold on with rook c4. Magnus marches his king up with king e3 and then king d4, positioning himself perfectly for the final breakthrough. Gukesh's pieces are tied down, and Magnus has full control. Magnus pushes e4 and then e5, clearing the way for his pawns. Gukesh tries to hold on, but Magnus is unstoppable now. Magnus pushes f6 and Gukesh resigns. The unstoppable pawns mean Magnus has total control. It's all over. Magnus wins in style. Wait, are you leaving without subscribing? That's like hanging your queen on move 5. Don't do it. Save your dignity and smash that button.